All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Tara Beams. I am the superintendent of schools here in the Henry Hudson Tri-District, and on behalf of the three boards of education, Henry Hudson Regional School, Atlantic Highlands Elementary School, and Highlands Elementary School, I want to welcome all of you to our Regionalization Information Fair. So tonight, myself, along with some of our experts in a variety of areas, will be here to present some information, some of the factual information that we have related to regionalization and our efforts to regionalize, present you with those facts, and then give you an opportunity to have discussions and questions with the experts in the variety of areas that you have questions. So you can ask them questions, you can engage in conversations, and have every question that you have or here, as long as you guys need us to answer a question. So these guys that are breaking our equipment up here, I'm going to introduce them really, really quickly. So right here, I have Mr. Brian Diamante and Dr. Brian Falkowski. They were contacted by the boards of education through Kane University to complete the financial analysis of our LEAP grant study, and they've been consulting with us throughout this entire process. We have Mr. Mark Magyar here with us. He is the director of the Rowan School Regionalization Institute. He is also one of the architects of New Jersey Senate Bill S3488, which is commonly known as the Regionalization Bill, which is the latest legislation which actually paves the way for regionalization. So he is here to answer any legislative policy questions or anything related to that very important piece of legislation. And then we have the Tri-District's legal counsel, Jonathan Bush from the Bush Law Group. He has been guiding us legally through this process, and will also has been working through what regionalization might look like and the legal process that we would have to go through if the three districts regionalize. So regionalization has been talked about in this area since 1978. The topic of regionalizing these three schools has been a decades-long debate, mostly on whether or not the current structures are efficient in running schools. So the most efficient model for a child is that there is a system that they go through from pre-K or kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And there's some continuity in those services, regardless of if you're in a very large district or a small district, that you have a team of administrators and educational experts that are making decisions that look at a child's journey from pre-K all the way through 12. So that comprehensive pre-K through 12 system is the most ideal for educational benefits for our students. And that's been a lot of what the debate on regionalization has been over the last 40 years, is are we working within an efficient model? So that is the long journey. The most recent journey of regionalization here started in 2019. So in 2018, the three municipalities of Seabright, Atlantic Highlands, and Highlands, they commissioned what is known as the Porzio study that was done by the three municipalities with limited interaction with the boards and very limited data supply from Shore Regional and Ocean Port for obvious reasons. At that time, there were many meetings. That was the previous administration. There were many meetings that were held. And in January of 2020, the boards of education and the administration at that time declined the invitation to move forward in that process, primarily due to concerns over being exposed to litigation and some issues within the study that they did not agree upon. COVID hit, things went on the back burner. However, in the process, the boards of education, they all unanimously agreed to study regionalization with and without Seabright to see if there was feasibility moving forward. So in May of 2021, the districts were awarded a LEAP grant, and we conducted a LEAP grant study. Those results were presented to the public with comment and questions on May 25th, 2022. In July of 22, based on those studies, the three boards of education, the municipalities of Seabright, Atlantic Highlands, and Highlands entered a joint petition with the Department of Education to ask for permission to hold a vote to regionalize the three districts and invite Seabright to join if and when the commissioner approved their withdrawal from their current school districts of Ocean Port and Shore Regional, and approve them joining, and then of course the voters would have to approve that as well. In January of 2023, in the months preceding that, it became very, very clear and evident that there were going to be repeated challenges and delays in the process related to Seabright joining the referendum. At that time, the boards of education met, we consulted with our experts, we also understood that there was a ticking clock within the S3488 legislation, which required us to successfully regionalize by May of 2023 in order to get some of the financial benefits, like state aid stabilization, a slower state aid rate, by May of 2023, and that clock was ticking. So, in January, the boards held a joint meeting. It was a public meeting with questions and comments, and the three boards unanimously decided to submit an amended petition to the Department of Education asking for approval for the first step of the process, which was for the three districts to actually form a pre-K through 12 district, while they were deciding on the Seabright piece so that there was actually a district that Seabright could join. That was submitted on March 17th. On Friday night, July 21st, 2023, at 8:02 p.m., the three boards of education received communication from the Department of Education letting them know that they were approved to go out for referendum in a special election slated for September 26, 2023. From that point, the clock started ticking. So in order for you to get something on the ballot for a September election, we had to submit the question and all related documentation by July 27th. That gave us exactly 3 business days to do that. We had to hold a joint meeting, we had to have the boards approve the transmittal of the question to the Board of Elections, and we did that on July 26th, and the question was sent then. At that time, the question cannot include Seabright. Seabright has not been approved by the Acting Commissioner of Education at this time to be part of this referendum vote. The Commissioner's Office and the County Office have put in writing that the Commissioner's decision at this time is clear, that this is the first step in regionalization, and that they cannot discuss Seabright publicly due to the pending litigation. That was given to us by Julie Blunt, who is the Chief of Staff of the Commissioner of Education just last week. I also wanted everybody to know that the fees associated with the special election are reimbursed by the Department of Education as per New Jersey S3488. So, on September 26th, this is the question that will be on the ballot. It asks for the voters of Highlands and Atlantic Highlands to approve the consolidation or regionalization of the 3 existing school districts into 1 school district using the current formula, apportionment formula that is used here at Henry Hudson right now, which is 100% equalized valuation over 0% enrollment, which is a typical tax apportionment for regional school districts throughout the state of New Jersey. So why do we want to regionalize? So the big debate for 40 years has been about an efficient system. So in 2006, the 3 school districts began to share services. It started with curriculum. So they hired a shared director of special services, of curriculum instruction, to make sure that the curriculum instruction being given in Highlands and in Atlantic Highlands was the same. Because the end goal was for all of those students in Highlands and Atlantic Highlands to come up to Henry Hudson in 7th, 12th grade. Then, there was a shared supervisor of special services. That was brought on in 2007. So we started sharing curriculum in 2006, and in 2007 we started to share special services directors. In 2011, the Tri-District appointed the first shared superintendent. That was the first time they shared superintendent. There were different configurations of superintendents in the 3 districts for a long time. Some even shared from districts outside of the 3 school districts in one of the districts. So this was the first time they appointed a shared superintendent of schools. Now, currently, one other fact. In 2014, the district boards of education voted to take on the moniker of the Tri-District. The Tri-District is in name only. It is not a legal entity. It is just the easy way for us to refer to all of the shared services that we have. Currently, what is shared in 3 separate districts is a shared superintendent, a shared director of C&I, a shared director of special services. This year we brought on a shared supervisor of buildings and grounds. We have 3 shared administrative assistants that work in the central office. We still have our shared curricula. We have 2 business administrators. One is shared in 2 out of the 3 districts, and one is a part-time after-hours PA that works full-time in another school district. We have some shared staff. CST, elementary guidance, technology specialists, ESL teachers, reading interventionists, instructional coaches, and they work within an interlocal agreement. What we do not share is 25 Board of Education members. They are primarily responsible for the local decisions. They do not attend each other's meetings, they do not approve each other's budgets, they do not negotiate each other's contracts, and they do not hire each other's staff. They make decisions solely for the Board of Education in the school district that they are appointed to. We have 3 operating budgets. We do the budget 3 times. We cannot share them, they are not reciprocal. So when we want to share staff, if they do not fit into one of the operating budgets, we cannot share them. We have 3 collective bargaining agreements. So when we share our teaching staff, we have to fit them into the provisions in 3 separate agreements. We have 3 separate start times for our schools. We have different prep times for our teachers. So depending on the school that they're shared in, we have to get the provisions of a contract that none of the other teachers work under. It's very complicated. We have 3 sets of different contracted service providers. We have 3 sets of grants and grant management. And we have 3 separate accounting systems that we work within. The current model does not maximize the work that we're doing to share services, which has been the goal of the Tri-District since 2011. We don't maximize that. In addition, we have very small school populations. So when you have small districts with very small populations, you also can't maximize some of the programming that you need for some of our specialized students, because we can't pool those students. We have 25 board members making decisions for about 750 plus students. Just to put this in perspective, Middletown, that's right next door, is one of 5 of the largest school districts in New Jersey. They operate 19 buildings. They have 9 board members, making decisions for almost 14,000 children. There are significant operational and governance efficiencies that can only be realized through the regionalization of these 3 schools. What we really need to talk about is what this does for our kids. Now, I've put it out there, and this is true. Our students wouldn't know that they're going to a different school district. They would stay in their schools. They would stay in their neighborhood schools. They probably have the same teachers. Their curriculum doesn't change. However, what we don't see in terms of educational benefits is when you have efficiencies in operations, and you have efficiencies in governance, and you have efficiencies in your fiscal responsibility, you are able to plan for resources and programs that are more educationally beneficial for all of our students, and you open up opportunities that they didn't have before. So, if we were to regionalize, we could create special education programming for multiple students, because right now we can't, that may keep some of our kids in district, and they are the appropriate programs for students based on their disabilities. We could also create specialized programs for some of our gifted students. We could create specialized programs for our arts students, for our STEM students, in the elementary schools and in the middle school and high school. There is a possible expansion of extracurricular programming. And the reason we can do this is because we're operating under one budget and under one teacher's contract, which allows for more flexibility in our staffing. Our staff also work in isolation. At Highlands Elementary School, with the exception of 5th grade, there is 1 teacher per grade level. They work in isolation. If I am a 1st grade teacher, I am the only 1st grade teacher. By regionalizing and making sure that our stipulations and our contracts allow for it, there's more opportunities for shared professional development. There's more opportunities for leadership experiences and teacher development, which we can't because of restrictive budget practices. Our staff would be able to articulate vertically and horizontally because our contracts would allow for it, our budgets would allow for it, and our time would allow for it. And the governance and the decision-making of our Board of Education would understand the importance from PK through 12 for our teachers to learn from and with each other. So I'm going to turn this over now to my friends here to talk about financial benefits. You want me to go through this slide? Oh, okay, I'm going to talk about this slide, then we're going to go. All right, so financial benefits. So anytime you have efficiencies in operations, that immediately yields savings. Because when you are streamlining process and procedures and you are more efficient, that equates into dollar signs. You're more productive, your resources are allocated better. The biggest thing here is the state aid stabilization. So, Highlands and Henry Hudson are both S2 districts. If you have lots of questions about S2, Mark Magyar, he's the guy to ask about S2. He can answer a lot of questions about S2. Henry Hudson and Highlands, over the last 10 years, have lost $750,000 in state aid because of S2. While Atlantic Highlands has not lost their state aid and has had small increases, this impacts the taxpayers in both towns because they have been losing this money. That's $750,000 over 10 years that these Board of Education do not get from the state, and that goes back on the taxpayers for us to operate or to start to cut programs. I'm sure you've heard about S2 in other districts that are losing millions of dollars, and they are laying off anywhere from 20 to 40 teachers yearly. With regionalization, we get the financial benefit of slowing the remaining S2 payments that we would have, and with a new state aid figure calculated by the highest of the 3 districts that are regionalizing, we would stabilize our state aid, which would bring back approximately $700,000 in state aid over the next 10 years. Not only would we recapture the money that we've lost, we would now be at that higher state aid figure, not at the lower one. That is essential when we are building our budgets. In addition, when we pool our students, we open ourselves up to larger grant allocations. We've talked a lot about our preschool grant that we have at Highlands Elementary School that brings in hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants for our pre-K students, and so that our parents in Highlands can enjoy free preschool for their students. If we regionalize, that grant will expand to include the Atlantic Highlands students, because now the threshold for the preschool grant has dropped at 10% free and reduced lunch. We qualify for that easily, and if for 2 classrooms of 24 kids, we are receiving somewhere around $350,000, imagine if we expand that to 3 classrooms. And we add 28 additional students from Atlantic Highlands, and the grant money that comes in. That is a significant savings. All of our grant money, our title money, Title I, Title II, Title III, 24, or Title IV, all of those monies expand because we're looking at an expanded pool. We also will have purchasing power. So if you've come to board meetings over the last year, we've talked about a technology infrastructure upgrade that was much needed in these districts. Our firewall up here at Henry Hudson, the end of life was 2013. So I thought that in 2022, we should probably replace that since it died 9 years ago, right? We had a catastrophic failure of our firewall up here. So we did tons of technology upgrades in all 3 schools. Had we been one district, we could have realized an additional savings of about $75,000 just on one project, just on installing our firewalls, because we would need 1, not 3. We would need 1 internet connection and 1 internet provider. We would be able to pool our E-rate money so that we could get more if we were 3. But we weren't. If we were 1, we weren't. We were 3, and it had to be done now. So we are losing that purchasing power. Efficiency, streamlining, leads to fiscal responsibility. It leads to cost savings, which brings down our operating budget, and we bring that back to the taxpayers. So speaking of taxes, I now will turn it over to Brian and Brian.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. I My name is Brian Falkowski. I have next to me Brian DiMonte. We have both been the same consultants since inception, so about 15 months ago we started providing a lot of numbers to you all. And so this evening, what we're presenting on this one particular slide, because we could go into a lot of detail in the back of the room this evening if you know, you'd like to come up to the table and ask questions. But for tonight, we figured let's take all of that information we provided over the last 15 months and let's consolidate it. Let's give you the net effect of what we think will happen upon consolidation. And so you can see here up at the top, it says this is the impact of the district regionalization at 100% equalized value with 0% enrollment. And it's for both, of course, Atlantic Highlands and Highlands. And again, we kind of shrunk this down to what would be the impact on your tax rate, because ultimately that's the easiest thing to understand. And it's just more personal. And so if you look at, for example, Atlantic Highlands, you can see that up top we have for $100,000 of assessed value. So if your house is 500, obviously you multiply times 5 and so on. It's $1 million, it's times 10. And you can see here in the first year we're expecting a tax saving, or a tax cost, I'm sorry, of $1 for 100,000, and then it ramps up. And so it's hard for you to see here, but $15 and 16 all the way up to about $25. So the average for Atlantic Highlands over 10 years is about $17.80. Okay? And so that's an average increase. So keep that in mind, that's an average increase. Now, there's an average assessed property value of a home in Atlantic Highlands, and that's about 550,000 roughly. And you can see what the impact is below that. So for a house of that cost, we're looking at roughly, what is that? It's about $98, right, on average. About $98 and change on average for 10 years, okay? And so that's what the average increase would be for the average assessed home. And then come down to Highlands. Highlands here is actually seeing tax savings, okay? And so you can see that tax savings for $100,000 worth of assessed value starts at $40 and ramps up to, I guess, right around $54 at the 2033-2034 school year. For an average 10-year, with the average property value being $343,170.80 average savings per year. So again, we just wanted to kind of take all those crazy numbers we put out there in the past, and all those numbers factor into this net. It's not only the equalized values, the net taxable values, it's looking at the cost savings, it's looking at all the efficiencies that Dr. Beams explained in the last slide. So, but we're going to move out along the back to go over any type of detailed question that you'd like. We have our laptops back there, we can calculate anything for you, we can show where the numbers were derived from, and so on and so forth. So,
Okay, so if we regionalize, what happens to the students? Well, immediately, like I said, nothing. They probably wouldn't even know that they're going to a new school district. Our community schools stay the same. Atlantic Highlands students in pre-K through 6, they would remain at Atlantic Highlands Elementary School. Our Highlands students in pre-K through 6, they would remain at Highlands Elementary School, and our 7 through 12 students would continue to come here to Henry Hudson Regional. As I said before, once we're regionalized, we would start to look at our populations of students and make sure that we have the appropriate programs for them. If we have students that need specialized programs that we could build in one school, those students might go to that school where that program is housed. We may also have reciprocal programs that we could share our students in. Right now, though, everything stays the same. There is some discussion at some point of moving 6th grade up to Henry Hudson. As we've seen curricula change, our curricula is generally K to 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. From an emotional and social standpoint, our 6th graders are more like middle schoolers. They want to participate in our clubs. They participate already in our athletics. Socially, there's more services up at the middle school that are appropriate for middle school students that are going through developmental middle school growth, right? So eventually, one of the recommendations is to possibly move 6th grade up here. Our schools are also beginning to be overcrowded. In Atlantic Highlands, based on our demographic survey, we are actually tapped out in terms of what the school was built for and the capacity of students we could have. Highlands, we still have capacity. Henry Hudson, we have capacity. Atlantic Highlands, based on the capacity of the school, right? But we also don't have instructional spaces. So if you walk around any of our schools, many of our small group instruction is divided by easels. We have 3 teachers doing small group instruction in one classroom. For a while, art was on a cart. A lot of our electives are, because we just don't have the classroom space. As we expand our preschool programs, we need space that is specific for our preschool students. So also moving 6th grade up to Henry Hudson frees up space in our elementary school program or schools to create some of these programs. What happens to our staff? Again, for most of them, what they'll notice is their paycheck has a different district on it. Our seniority and tenure status are unaffected. That is a provision in S3488. Trust me, the NJEA would have not endorsed the bill where their teachers were going to lose their seniority and tenure status. And I don't blame them, right? So our teachers, their tenure and seniority do not change. Their salaries cannot be decreased. They cannot be decreased. As a matter of fact, right now, even if I didn't regionalize, their salaries cannot be decreased. They cannot. So even though we would negotiate a new teacher's contract, our teachers could not make less money. It is not allowable by law. Since our schools do not have significant changes, and we still have the same number of students, we still need the same number of teachers teaching those students. So unlike in some other regionalized models, we don't have staff cuts because of regionalization. For the most part, our staffing stays the same. A best practice that I do currently is I constantly analyze our staffing and make sure that we are right-sized for the programs that we have and the enrollment that we have in the schools. That would continue under regionalization, and we maximize productivity of our staff. It may be possible that more staff than we already have right now might be shared among buildings because of specific programs or needs. And there may be, as there are in most multi-school districts, voluntary or possibly involuntary transfers because of a need in another building. That is very typical in most school districts. One single contract would be negotiated. We have 3 years to negotiate that. Our teachers' contracts right now, which is also part of our urgency for regionalization, are up at the end of this school year. So to begin, if regionalization passes, to begin the process of merging those 3 contracts and negotiating those 3 contracts could begin now, rather than negotiating 3 separate contracts, which might then have to be renegotiated later. So what's the downside to regionalization? There are some. Obviously with regionalization, some of the local autonomy of the dissolution of the Atlantic Highlands Elementary School District and the Highlands Elementary School District means that those boards of education would be dissolved. And so there's a little bit of a loss of autonomy there. The newly created pre-K through 12 regional board would need to commit effort and resources to assume control. That means, and I'll show you that in the next slide if we vote yes, that the boards of education would have to commit to the building of the brand new pre-K through 12 district. And so they'd have to commit those resources to looking at existing contracts, restructuring contracts and collective bargaining agreements, and working with our staff. And there may need, as I said, be some need to relocate staff or share them, although this is probably not going to happen and would be relatively minor. So what happens if the voters say yes? So this is really critical about the question of why September? Why September 26th? Why not wait and wait and wait? Why not November? Why not March? Because according to S3488, if on September 26th, regionalization passes, the Board of Education has 30 days from the vote, so 30 days from September 26th, to begin the process of regionalization. Regionalization must be complete, and the new all-purpose pre-K through 12 district must be fully operational by July 1 of 2024. We have less than a year to run 3 districts simultaneously, legally dissolve 2, and illegally build a brand new one. We need all of the time that we can get. So that is why we urge the commissioner for the earliest voting date possible, which was September 26, 2023, because we need that time to complete this process. What happens to the board? To the current boards of education, they remain board members in the 3 boards until June of 2024, so the end of the 23-24 school year. At the same time, a transitional regional board is created from members of the 3 existing boards that is selected by the board members of the existing boards to be a transitional board. That transitional board serves until there is an election in November of 2024 where your newly elected Regional Board of Education, which is made up of a portion of Atlantic Highlands and Highlands voters, which is set by the county based on census. The Board of Education doesn't decide how many come from Highlands and how many come from Atlantic Highlands. That is set based on the census, and we are provided that by the county. That new board would be elected in November, and they would be seated at the reorganization meetings in January of 2025. So, even more complicated, if regionalization passes the voters, we will work with 3 different boards in a matter of a year to get this up and running. What happens if it fails? So if the voters say no, the boards of education have to decide if they are going to go back out for referendum. To go back out for referendum, you have to re-petition the Commissioner of Education. If anybody's been paying attention to the timelines, that doesn't go very quickly, right? I think we've learned that the DOE doesn't move very fast, right? But we would have to re-petition the DOE with why we need to go back out again. That costs money. We would have to update our study just like we did in March. We would have to hire our legal team to do that. So we would have to re-petition them to go out for a referendum. And in the meantime, the current structures of the tri-district would stay exactly as they are. Your taxes would stay exactly as they are. The operational inefficiencies would continue. The redundant spending, the redundant tasks would continue. And our students would remain in the programming that we can achieve right now under the current structures. So, tonight is a unique structure. We wanted to have face-to-face conversations and make sure that we're answering questions thoroughly. So, if you think about a science fair, this is an information fair. Around the back of the room will be all of our experts. They will be there for as long as you need to have discussions, ask questions, give your feedback. So at the back table, back there, those are members of our Board of Education. They will answer questions from a Board of Education perspective, a community perspective, and there are a lot of rumors and innuendo and misinformation floating around. So they'll be able to answer any questions related to that. I will be in the back as well as the district representative that can talk about the educational side of this, operational and governance side. Our financial experts, Dr. Brian Falkowski and Brian Diamante, they will be in the back. Also, our legal expert, Jonathan Bush, will be in the back that can answer any questions about the legal processes that we've talked about. And then Mark Magyar, who I said is the architect of the law that has allowed for us to move forward in regionalization. And just a quick note, regionalization does not happen often in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, Mark, I believe that there has been 3 successful regionalizations, and the last regionalization happened almost 20 years ago. This is the first time that there is, correct?
Yeah.
So, this is the first time that there has been legislation that has actually allowed for some of the barriers against regionalization. And that was just passed in January of 2021. So this doesn't happen every day. When we talk about experts in regionalization, it's very hard to find them. And it's even harder to find them because nobody's ever done it under this law. So we have Mark here that will answer any questions about S3488. Why regionalization? What are the benefits of regionalization? Why is this a push in New Jersey? And any questions about what does that law allow for Seabright, for the 3 districts? He's the guy to ask. He wrote it. He knows it better than anyone. So right now, we're going to conclude our presentation. We're going to go back to our tables, spend some time, come and ask your questions, make sure they are asked, have discussions with the experts. There are board members around the room too to help facilitate any of that. There are frequently asked questions up here with a copy of the presentation. Any questions that are asked are not already included in the frequently asked question, which we hear a lot. We will note and then we will update our frequently asked questions. I thank you so much for your time tonight, and I look forward to talking with all of you in the back.